the Church of Scientology is so afraid of.
This is SPTV.
Hello, guys, and welcome back to SPTV for another episode of What is Scientology So Afraid of? And digging deeper into this ABC News segment, Nightline, discussing Debbie Cook and her testimony and her lawsuit. So we're going to continue reacting. I do want to have a trigger warning advice. This subject and discussing things that Debbie Cook was involved in does require a trigger warning because it discusses unthinkable abuse of minors. So if you have a hard time listening to these type of details being discussed, it would be better that you take care of your mental health and that you proceed with caution. That being said, if you want to listen to what Cook's testimony is and for us to put the context on what she's not talking about, be sure to join. And thank you to all of you who have been subscribing to our channel and have been liking our videos and commenting. It's honestly the support of this community that is giving us finally the hope that something can be done about it. We finally have our voice. We're not being edited. We're not being suffocated by ulterior corporate media that has not been letting us get our worth out. So with that being said, I really want to thank everyone of this community that is showing up with us shoulder to shoulder and becoming advocates for every last person that is 21 and under in the Scientology hotels. So let's get into this segment. Thanks again.
In repeated letters to ABC News, Scientology officials have denied that David Miscavige ordered Debbie Cook to be slapped or to have her finger bent back or that he punched a fellow executive. In fact, the church sent us a letter signed by the executive in question in which he said this alleged incident did not occur and I would remember it if it had. But Cook is not backing down. You stand by what you've said.
I absolutely do.
In her testimony, she goes even further, alleging that in June of 2007, while she was working at the Scientology International Base in Southern California, she was suddenly and physically removed from an office by two large men while she was on the phone with David Miscavige.
He was asking me about various projects and was unhappy that things had not gotten done to his satisfaction. And then soon after that, the window was pried open. These two guys came through the window and Mr. Miscavige asked me on the phone, "Are they there?" I said, "Yes." He said, "Goodbye." And then I was physically taken off with these two guys to the hole.
The hole.
All right, guys, let's just react here a little bit and give you a little bit of context because Debbie Cook does definitely paint a horrendous picture of her sitting there with these two guys coming and grabbing her, even though she's a full-grown adult woman. So juxtaposing that to the experience that I and many other minors had, for example, when I was just 16 years old and was told that I needed to go to the RPF, what Debbie Cook is explaining here right now is exactly what happened to me. I was taken to the ethics officer. I was told to wait by the phone, and I was on the phone being told you will be routed to the RPF. And once again, the RPF is a much more horrific version of what Debbie Cook is describing as a whole. Because once again, the fact that I had to be twinned with a self-admitted you-know-what, I think beats just being stuck in a room with other adults. I'm sorry to push that back on you, Debbie, but thank you for corroborating and actually stating what you were doing to minors every time you were sending a minor to your own version of the whole. Because once again, guys, the media wouldn't know that Debbie ran her own hole. The media wouldn't know that because they're pitching the RPF as, what was it? Dan reporter Dan was calling it a remedial whatever after your career hits the skids. So it would be nice to know why the media will only capitulate to Devi's pitch about being put in the hole. And just because we were calling our own hole RPF and the media can't seem to grasp the severity of the human right violations that were going on, the fact that we were forced to do that program without consent, that we were forced to sign forms and contracts to do that program to purport we were doing it on our own volition where we were not even of age. And you know what? Debbie Cook very, very well knew that. She knew the age of every last person she was sending there. So this woman had a ton of oversight. And again, she just makes it about herself.
Oh, according to Cook's testimony, it was located here in a pair of double-wide trailers on the international base.
And when I was there, it had bars on the windows and security guards posted at the one door for entering and exiting.
What do you have to do in order to...
So yet again, you guys, when I was sent to the RPF, I had 2 guards watching me 24/7 for over a month. The first month that I arrived at the RPF, I was told I was under watch because they were scared of me blowing. They were scared of me trying to escape because these people were very aware, you guys, of how sadistic and depraved these whole centers of theirs were. So as much as everybody tries to say a remedial work program, we're pushing back on that completely ridiculous false narrative.
be sent to the hole?
You have to really have caused what Mr. Miscavige considered to be, harm, or, you've really done enough bad that you're being sort of quarantined in the hole.
And when you're in there, can you leave?
No, you cannot.
What would happen if you tried to leave?
You can't. You just can't leave. There's guards at the door.
Right, Debbie. And will you also answer the question, if children, underage minors, were stuck at your hole, at your RPF hole, would they be able to leave? No, they cannot. Why is that? Because we had barbed wire around us. We had cameras and motion detectors everywhere. We had people inside the whole RPF that would act as security guards. And then we had a whole number of security guards that y'all brought from, what was it? Hungary, from communist countries. You would put all these security guards from communist countries to patrol the hacienda, make sure nobody leaves, make sure nobody jumps out of the fence. In fact, the fence with the barbed wire, you guys, with all the cameras, was installed as a result of somebody escaping. So just so you know how these people thought they had the power to do whatever it was that it was. And as much as Debbie Cook wants to project that it was only David Miscavige having that power, she could not be any more wrong, and she could not be lying more about the facts.
Coming up, what Debbie Cook says happened to her and the other executives inside the hole, and the church's response.
I mean, again, I don't know if they get paid every time they say church, or if that's how, they purport to be doing a balance segment. But this woman already described having to have her finger ordered to be broken, being in that double wide trailer, being under security guard 24/7, not being able to leave. Why? Again, if other churches want to join us on this conversation and say, yeah, me too, we do that all the time. We do that over here, Serge. We do that at the synagogue, Serge. You just didn't know we did that at synagogues? Oh yeah, and we do it over here too, Serge, at at cathedrals. That's what we do. I wouldn't know. I've never been part of any community like that. But you know what? I've never heard anything like that unless we are going back to the Middle Ages. Probably all these religions should be literally repudiating any relation or any false equivalent to being said that they're just like these people at this hotel. Because number one, I would like to know from anyone out there that's got any connections with these religions, institutions, are we saying that they run hotels? Are we saying that they're staffing minors? Are we saying that they're locking up minors' passports? Are we saying that they put their executives in places they call a hole, double wide trailers with ants crawling everywhere at 100-degree weather plus? And then do they also have a thing called sort of an RPF sort of thing? Is that what is done in all the modern religions? We would love to know. Because yet again, the few people that we've been able to speak to here and there has been plenty of conversations with Jehovah's Witnesses, plenty of conversations with Mormons and all manner of other people that, yes, they had it rough. Yes, they suffered. Yes, they were unthinkable conditions for them as well. But none of them have had a hole or an RPF or interrogations where they're held against their will and physically forced into a room. That's the type of hotel Debbie Cook ran. So just to put it on the public record now.
The Church of Scientology is the only way forward to mental clarity, spiritual enlightenment, and as its members call it, clear. Debbie Cook, a former church official, says she still believes that, and yet she's taken the stand in a Texas courtroom to testify that church officials held her against her will in a place known as the hole that church officials deny even exists.
So yet again, you guys, Debbie Cook had been 5 years out before she decided to write her little email. So why was 5 years not enough for her to decompress from her experience, to have some self-reflection, to have some thoughts that are honest in her head and really repudiate all of what she was doing? And then subsequently, because I got another comment of somebody saying like, yeah, she at least wrote something and at least some people left and you should be so thankful about that. Well, what has happened in the last 11 years since this segment? Why has a decade after she's been on a constant collection program of checks, why has that taken priority over the truth? Why has that taken priority over criminal activity that she was personally perpetrating on the minors that she was enslaving in her hotel? So if somebody wants to answer that and then repitch Debbie Cook as like this woman that had no idea about anything, Debbie Cook had a lot of ideas about a lot of things. She had eyeballs everywhere in those hotels. Nothing happened in those hotels without her blessing. Nothing happened in those hotels without her being told. She had an entire pyramid of subordinates. Juniors is what she was calling her slaves. Oh, you're just my junior. You're just my junior. Call me sir. Call me Mr. Cook. Don't call me anything else, or I'm going to scream at you and rip your head off for not having your etiquette in. I mean, that's the type of delusions of grandeur this woman had full time while operating that hotel. And it looks like that programming has never left Debbie Cook because she's nowhere to be found today, except going to the bank to cash her check to keep her mouth shut.
ABC's Dan Harris continues his exclusive interview.
I'm Debbie Cook, captain of the Flag Service Organization.
For 17 years, Debbie Cook was one of Scientology's highest-ranking insiders.
Okay, you guys, and just in that photo there that we just saw, there were 3 minors, okay? So Martino Stanzani was an Italian kid that grew up in the cadet org, was right behind Debbie Cook in her executive department. And then there was Jason Hemphill, who was also a minor, that was one of her executives, that is still there, locked up, doing God knows what, continuing the cycle of abuse, continuing the generational trauma cycle, because that's how this virus spreads. It spreads from one generation to the next generation to the next. Everybody normalizes the absurd, obscene, and depraved. So we have to advocate for people, even like, I don't know where DiMartino is anymore. And, I think Jason Hemphill is still there. Well, we have to advocate for him because he was a child when he was brought there. And, unfortunately for Jason, he very similar to Debbie Cook. If he's right now in his mid 40s, abusing kids ad nauseum because that's what Debbie Cook normalized for him. Well, you know what? Maybe he should go call her and pay her a visit and ask her why she was normalizing what she was normalizing, because now he's doing it to others. Other kids are the victims of that same exact abuse. So how does any of this make sense? It doesn't.
But according to her court testimony, in June of 2007, she was forcibly taken to The Hole, located here on Scientology's international base in California. It was, she says, a place for Scientology executives who had fallen out of favor with the leader of the church, David Miscavige. Cook testified she was in the hole for 7 weeks, that she and the other executives were fed a sort of slop, that the place was crawling with ants, and that the temperature at times reached 106 degrees.
Okay, Debbie Cook, time to push back yet again, because we were fed slop at your hole, RPF. We were minors. And trust me, we weren't there for a little tiny 7-week stint. I was personally there for 2 years, Debbie Cook, and I got the hell out of there. I crawled my way out of there with my nails. I was a so-called superstar because I finished the program in 2 years. Imagine the audacity of these people, you guys, because Debbie Cook, well, she complains she spent 7 weeks in that hole. The kids she was sending to their RPF were there for 5 years, 7 years, 10 years, 12 years. 12 years, 15 years. There was people there that were 15 years in the RPF doing this pseudo whatever program that it is that the media is pitching. So we have to push back on Debbie Cook because, again, she's purporting that she got it so bad. But you know what? Again, she had slaves when she was at the hotel. So she wasn't inconvenienced in any way, shape, or form. She had a jolly old time her whole time she was there. Once again, going back to her own testimony, she loved it. She loved it. She stood for it. She thought everything was great. The only thing she didn't like is that David gave her a little bit of a taste of her own medicine. That's the only thing that made Debbie Cook react when things were dished out to her that she was doing to minors. That's when Debbie Cook said, oh, no, no more. I'm leaving. I'm getting the hell out of here.
What did you do all day?
Most of the time, the activities were either you confessing your own sins or bad things that you've done, or
Why are you smiling and smirking, Debbie? Like, it's just inappropriate and weird, to be honest. It's so confusing and bizarre. Like, we were confessing and well, you know what? We were confessing in your hole too, 5 hours a day at least. And we had to listen to all manner of next perverts that you were sending there because, again, for you to sit there and pretend you had it so rough, well, at least you weren't next to self-admitted you-know-whats. Because those executives couldn't have been that, because otherwise they would have ended up in the RPF. So that's the little juxtaposition there for you. So before you cry about how you had it so bad, you should start really coming clean on what you were doing to the minors, because they are the ones that were suffering bad, Debbie Cook. Not you, not the executives at the hole. Because you, the executives at the hole, like Jenny the Vogt and, Marty Rathbun and you and all of them. You were sending the kids to your own versions of your own holes. In Los Angeles, you had one. In Denmark, you had one. In Australia, there was one. And there was one at Int, and there was, which is literally California, two in California, two holes, two RPFs, and then the Florida one. So there were plenty of worldwide holes where all manner of executives were sending people to. And again, we're advocating for minors. How many minors were sent to the hole? Because I was there with so many. I don't even know how many they were. I literally lost count. But there was literally probably over 20 out of like 150 people, 20 to 30 were minors. So start running numbers in your own head and start really coming clean with what needs to be discussed.
Getting another person to confess theirs. People are screaming at you, and in some cases, sometimes you're made to stand in a trash can. Water's poured over you.
That happened to you.
Yes,
Did you break down at all?
I did. Yeah, I did.
The church denied our repeated requests.
Well, at least you weren't humiliated in front of 800 people, Debbie Cook, because your staff meetings were filled. No one was allowed to, God forbid, they wanted to skip the staff meeting. They were mandatory. So every last person that worked at the hotel was inside that building where you just ran your mouth with expletives, with horrendous, disgusting threats. I mean, you were unhinged. There was no one to stop you. Dave was nowhere to be around, to be found, to stop you or to say stop. And then everyone else, the RTC reps, Angie Trent, Sue Gentry, Ann Rathben, Sue Pichet Gentry, literally Marina Pazzotti, all these women were there. Angie Blankenship, Pilar Saldarriaga. All these women were all about this culture. They thought they were tough. They were proud to be this tough and to be this unhinged and literally repulsive screamers and child abusers. They were all about it. They literally sat there with a little role play military uniform, and it's rich that you want to just be all about what everyone else did to you.
For an interview. However, their lawyer sent ABC News a letter saying flat out the hole does not exist and never has.
Well, that is a lie for that man Sutter that's literally lying on the record, because apparently lawyers you can just hire to write any old lie on public television, major news network. Oh, who cares? I mean, as long as I, don't get caught putting these falsehoods on the actual court, because that's when they lose their law license. So here they just pretend that they can just lie. Oh, the hole does not exist. Let's just deny. And, since you say that it exists and you say that it doesn't exist, well, we'll just leave it at that. And, y'all make your mind up about whether it does or doesn't exist. Well, the hole exists because we were told about it. So we even knew, even though the hole in Florida was called RPF, it's the same thing. So that Sutter lawyer couldn't be more corrupt too, joining the ranks of the type of clients that he's in the business of representing.
The letter did say that Cook voluntarily participated in their program of religious discipline, but that she was not taken there by force or held against her will, and that her account of what went on is inaccurate and misleading.
Well, you know what? Shout out to you, Sutter. Because if you want to write a little statement about Me Too, liking it, and being all about your religious discipline that included, but was not limited to, being made the twin of a you-know-what, go ask Debbie Cook, who Marcus Ginter is. Go ask Marty Rathbun, who Marcus Ginter was. And then ask them to tell you how many minors did that man abuse in that hotel. And then tell us if that's a religious discipline that you're pitching in that instance as well. Maybe for Debbie Cook, you can get away with pitching that. But how are you getting away with pitching that for a minor? We would love to hear from you, Gary Sutter.
In her court testimony, Cook says several months after she left the hole, she decided to leave her position in church management. In this videotape released by the church, Cook and her husband Wayne are seen signing contracts agreeing to never publicly disparage the church or its leadership.
Well, you guys, there you go. Yet again, these Scientology attorneys who could not be more crazy, who could not be more dishonest themselves. Like, I'm glad that they were stupid enough to send these videos to the news, because at least we have the footage. Well, now erase the face that you see here of Debbie Cook and put that of a minor, because guess what? Minors were sat in front of men like the one that you see in front of you right now, an attorney that knows the law, and apparently an attorney that knows the law does not think there's any conflict in having literally acquired minors such as Valerie Haney, such as Valeska Perez, such as Gwen, such as Laura, like all these minors that were acquired in their infancy were locked up in that place 24/7, 365 in a full-blown data anorexia diet of only L. Ron Hubbard, so none of them could understand a shred of what the law was. So by the time we got to them to leave, all we understood is you're going to owe us a lot of money every time you open your mouth. And since you know how serious we are and we've trained you so well, you're not going to open your mouth, right? So let's just shout out those attorneys that are literally in the business of corruption, because what else could this be?
And accepting checks for $50,000 apiece.
And you have high regards for the staff that you work with.
Very
And how about the boss?
big.
Okay. Talking about David Miscavige.
I mean, yet again, you guys, how are these attorneys just putting this out there? Like, the audacity. I mean, Debbie Cook looks like she's a kidnapped victim, willing to say whatever. Well, you know what? Yes. Because part of the thing that works in that hotel chain is when you fall out of favor, you will have your life made miserable. Now, I don't wish that on Debbie Cook. I don't wish that on my worst enemy, literally. And it's clear to see that Debbie Cook was scared and whatever, but you know what? She was also catching a $50,000 check each. Her and Wayne. But did any of her minors catch any checks? No. Because apparently it doesn't matter if you were a minor and you were abused. Doesn't matter at all.
For more than 4 years, Cook remained silent. But just a few weeks ago, when she sent out this email to a large group of fellow Scientologists, complaining, among other things, about her belief that David Miscavige had accumulated too much power, the church sued her for breach of contract.
Well, yet again, Debbie, you are projecting that David had a lot of power, but what about your power? Because you had a ton of power yourself. So why are you acting like you didn't have the power and he had the power, and that's what you're complaining about in your email? That and your little fundraising, pet peeve that you have. But everything else was great. Everything else was wonderful, and I was doing such a great job, and I was having such a great time, and I would just still be there if it wasn't because David got in the way. So let's just highlight that for everybody to see now on the public record.
Cook's lawyers argue that the contract is unenforceable because despite what Cook says on this videotape,
And you're doing this voluntarily? No one has made any threats or forced you to do anything?
Not at all whatsoever.
she now argues she only signed under duress, something the church denies.
So yet again, shout out to the courts that are trying to enforce arbitration on minors that signed those contracts. And yes, pushing back on this narrative that even if you left like Valerie in a trunk of a car, she didn't have any growth intellectually while she was stuck in that hotel. Her intellect was stunted, in case anybody tries to understand how that works. And the difference between Valerie and someone like Debbie Cook, you guys, and the difference that Debbie Cook did get some real outside knowledge of how the world worked is because she was a high-ranking executive. She had meetings with attorneys. She had meetings with the legal department. She had to be abreast of everything, what was legal, what was not legal, what they were going to get in trouble, what they were not getting in trouble. Because if anything happened in those hotels that created a problem, and this is where it gets extremely horrific for anybody working in those hotels. If Debbie Cook had a legal problem actually surface, like, what, getting actually caught doing a felony and then getting that into the police. Well, Debbie Cook was there to make sure that that didn't happen. She made sure that all people that had done that in her hotels were just, okay, see you later. You don't qualify for here anymore, but you know what? Let's send you to another country. Well, we will get you cleaned up and all of that. So have to really make the point of what in the hell is going on and why she's not really coming clean about anything.
I would have signed that, I stabbed babies over and over again and loved it.
Okay, you guys, I feel like I don't even have to make a point. Like literally the self-awareness of a woman that goes on the stand talking about babies, stabbing babies over and over and loved it. Well, you know what, Debbie Cook, I never saw you stabbing babies inside those hotels, but I definitely saw you abusing minors that were defenseless, that were confused, that had no idea what in the hell you and the rest of your unhinged women, grown women buddies that we just mentioned by name, so that everybody starts learning all the names, so that everybody starts really learning how this works, so that everybody starts learning that, y'all were a team and y'all were proud of that. A team has a tendency to know what each other is thinking and doing and coordinates thereby and therewith. That was the little definition you guys would have us chant over and over again. Well, that little definition is something that you and your little co-conspirators should start really reviewing. How much were we a team? How much were we coordinating on the unthinkable? So, nice choice of words that you chose there about stabbing babies and loved it, because every last minor that you made feel like they were guilty after they had been violated with an out 2D perpetrated on them by a grown woman and a grown man. It didn't matter. Both of those things happen week after week after week, and you know it well. If it wasn't at the Fort Harrison, it was a Coachman building. If it wasn't at the Coachman, it's at the students' motels. If it's not the students' motels, it's at the Yachtsman. If it's not at the Yachtsman, it's at the Hacienda. If it's not at the Hacienda, it's at the QI. If it's not at the QI, it's at the Sandcastle. If it's not at the Sandcastle, right? So one way or another, something was always going on. You were out there, what did you call it? Putting out fires, handling flaps, handling hill tens, all these euphemisms to launder what you were actually doing. So there.
I would have done anything basically at that point.
In a flurry of statements to ABC News, the church describes Cook's allegations using words like false, salacious, defamatory, fiction, untrue and distasteful, sensationalistic, and revisionist. Essentially, they're saying that you and your
revisionist is the only thing they got right out of all those words that these attorneys that get paid God knows how much money to write those little words. Well, you know what? Revisionist is the key word here. For all of these people purporting that they want to come clean and they want to use the media to really have a revolution and change things. There is full revisionist history, and we have Debbie Cook and little Marty Rathbun as the two little golden child posters of what it takes to just cash checks from Monique Yingling and how to use the media to do your bidding. They should do a course on that and start cashing checks more, because I'm sure that other people that want to be child abusers and then just want to get away with it could learn a lot from these two.
Your husband are bitter, defrocked apostates, that's their term, and that you're part of a group of heretics. I believe the church term for that is squirrels. How do you respond to that?
I have never lost my passion or love for the church and all that it stands for and all that it does.
Well, you know, in 2023, Debbie Cook, write a letter and write an email and tell us, pitch what the Scientology stands for. We dare you to write that email. We dare you to put it in writing. Since, you know, here in this decade ago, you had not even a shred of a clue. So maybe stop cashing checks from Monique Yingling and start writing your real situations, the things that need to be fixed so that no more minors such as yourself and Shelly and Dave and me and all the other hundreds of thousands of minors that have been abused unthinkably can really start reversing that cycle of trauma and disgusting things that should not be happening.
Is to help others. So I'm not bitter. It's really out of that passion and love and care that I am doing this.
Yet again, Baby Cook, like, I'm not bitter. I'm so passionate and I just want to love and I just want to do this. What is it going to take for you to realize that locking a child against their will inside hotels while y'all video record them and watch them and listen and whisper in their ears was not anything you ever did out of love? So yet again, you want to be sitting there with this angelical face that you just want to do everything for the great and you love it and you've all still fallen in love and you're so in love. You're so in love with yourself is what the problem is, Debbie Cook. You're so in love with yourself instead of actually doing the hard work you need to do. I mean, it isn't like you didn't drill that inside that hotel. They told you, write your overts and your withholds, right? Well, where's your OW write-up now? Why haven't you written every last name of every last child that you were out there on your recruiters, on minors that you made your recruiters and told them, go get me kids, go get me underage, go get them to sign that contract, get them pre-qualified, let's get them in, let's put them on post, let's enslave them, let's treat them like hell. Nobody cares. No one's going to look inside this hotel. Monique Yingling said we could do whatever. It doesn't matter what we do. L. Ron Hubbard wrote it in a policy. So yay, yay, yay. Like, how does that make any sense to you? We would love to hear.
To rid it of a situation that has grown out of control. Nobody knew flag like I did.
In our interview, Debbie Cook.
Well, there you have it, guys. The end of the interview. Nobody knew flag like I did. No shit, Debbie Cook. No shit. You made our point in ways that we couldn't even possibly imagine we could make the points. I mean, you literally just corroborate and corroborate and corroborate and corroborate again everything that you were up to in that horrific hotel. So that wraps up that ABC segment. And now we have it on the record what you have not been coming clean on and the type of self-awareness that you literally don't possess because you're blinded by checks that you're catching every month. We will continue exposing the facts. And you know what? Nothing can stop us. Nothing. I'll see you guys later. Thank you for listening. Bye-bye.